Good evening. I'm not sure if anyone's on the call. I haven't seen a list, but welcome if you're with us. I think it'll be a very informative program. We do have hurricane season upon us, and it's looking to be rather active. So we need to start preparing now so that we're ready if one does come along. And as most of you've probably heard, we already have a tropical storm that's in the Atlantic. So, you never can prepare too early. So with that being said, do I go to Jake or Steve? Which one's taking over? I've had no instruction. I don't know what to do here.
That's okay. Okay. We'll just turn it over directly to Steve. He'll go through a quick PowerPoint, and then we're here to answer any questions anybody might have afterwards. So, Steve, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, as the Commissioner said, there's a storm already out in the Atlantic, and it's still May, and I'll touch on that in a few moments. This session is also being recorded, so you can pass it on to your family and friends. If they miss it, they can catch it online. And what we have seen last year and never had thought of it was there's a number of people who have already headed back north for the summer that have never heard a hurricane preparedness presentation. And actually they learned quite a bit because they weren't here to hear them in person. So there's a lot of benefit of it being recorded and doing Zoom. My name is Steve Litschauer. I'm the Chief of Emergency Management. And on the call, obviously, is Commissioner Baugh and my boss, the Director of Public Safety, Jacob Saur. So at the end, as the Director said, we'll entertain some questions. And so without further ado, I will start my presentation. We have a couple key points that I would like to cover tonight. One is what we call Know Your Home. The next one is Know Your Level. Some evacuation tips, tips on preparing your home, also where to find out sandbagging and shelter locations, and when to use 911 versus 311. I hope I don't go too quickly, but it is recorded, and I'll be making reference to almost all the materials where you can find it and other locations also. So first of all, hurricane season is June 1st through November 30th. Last year, if you were around, you know that it was quite a busy year. Predicted had been 16 storms and 8 hurricanes. Well, in fact, we had 30 storms and 13 hurricanes. So a key factor here is just announcing when hurricane season is, and that what we had last year. You'll hear me say this over and over again. It only takes one. It only takes one. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, referring back to, I'll use some reference from storms in the past. But the Panhandle in 2018 had been over 100 years since they saw a major hurricane of a category 4 or 5 and Hurricane Michael. So it was only taken that one. So looking at the forecast this year, the 30-year average, looking back in time, 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes. The prediction or the forecast for this coming year is 16 to 20 named storms with 7 to 10 hurricanes. Again, what I just said, it only takes just that one. We can look at Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Michael, and further on back. So this is the names of the storms this year. If you're lucky enough to have a name on the list, maybe it's not luck, but if your name is on it, maybe a family or a friend may say, oh yeah, your name shows up, you truly are a storm. That's jokingly, what do we do when we run out of names? We did this last year. We used the Greek alphabet, and a lot of times I can't even pronounce some of those Greek words, but they'll continue on. And when it's a major storm, they retire the name. So this is the 2021 name makeup, and Anna is already out there, as the Commissioner said. What we want to look at here is the peak of the season. What I want to say too is that do not get too consumed on June 1st through November. If my memory serves me correctly, there's been a hurricane every month of the year except February. And so if you've lived here a while, you know our concern, or my concern, is almost those afternoon rainstorms, those what we call no-name storms otherwise. But hurricanes are very important. That's what we're preparing for now. As you see, according to this chart, it's over a 100-year period. The major storms come in mid-August to mid-October, so about a 2-month period. But again, we go back to, again, it only takes one. We've already had one in May, but that 2-month period. And September the 10th is a key date. If we look back for Hurricane Irma back in 2017, we know that Hurricane Irma came in between the 9th and the 11th. So it's pretty well on target. Don't, again, get consumed on just this is kind of giving you a history lesson of when the busiest time is. What I want to key in on is do not let your guard down, because what it's being seen now is 2 things I want to point out here too. Number one, when storms get into the Gulf, they can be very major. And we have seen storms, and Michael again was one that went from a Saturday afternoon or an afternoon a thunderstorm to a category 4 or 5 in 3 days or less. That's 3 days or less. That's not time to prepare. The time to prepare is now. We'll talk about your hurricane kit or your storm kit, evacuations and so forth. So don't wait to the last minute. Be prepared. Have that kit ready. Have your documents ready. Know where you're going to go if you need to evacuate. But 3 days or less is not very long to prepare to do something. The 2021 guides, hurricane guides, are not out yet. We just got an email today. Like a lot of other things are delayed. We have those made through a coalition through Tampa Bay. They should be out next week, but I can assure you the 2020 information in the guides you already have, same information, same maps, same phone numbers, same guidance, just not in the format. This year they're coming out, not so much in a fold-out guide, but in a book-like guide. They'll be distributed to different city halls, libraries, and so forth. If you live in a large homeowners association, at the end, you'll have my email and phone number. We can set up a pickup delivery. We have them both in English and Spanish. But what I want to start out here is, if anything else, if you want to write down mymanatee.org, that's mymanatee.org. And the rest of these links are important, but if anything else, just remember that link, because when you go to that link, then you'll have a search bar. So in this case, if you put in mymanatee.org in the search bar hurricane guide, you'll go right to electronic copy and it'll be right there. So it's available online, it's available in print, and it contains most, if not all, of the information I'm covering tonight. So like I said, if I'm talking too quick, you'll have phone numbers, you'll have evacuation areas, and so forth. Also, for years and years, we talked about having 3 to 5 days of supplies and goods. Now we prefer and recommend 7 to 10 days. We also recommend, even though hopefully we're seeing the end of COVID, it's still not a bad idea to have masks and gloves. As sanitizer, it is a personal choice. So if that is your choice, have those, but otherwise we'll go in just a few minutes what those other needed things are for your disaster kit. And we're calling it a disaster kit because I'm going to give you a couple for instances. One is right at now, about 2 months ago, a Category 1 tornado struck IMG Country Club area. A lot of us remember it as El Conquistador, ripped roofs off of 5 condos, about $1.3 million damage with zero notification, just dropped out of nowhere. If those people would have had a kit after the storm, they could have grabbed and at least had something to go with them. Lucky enough and good, no one was injured, but those things happen. We can look back at Piney Point. In the middle of a Friday afternoon, out of nowhere, we had to order an evacuation of folks. We ended up housing, I think it was 137 folks, but again, unannounced. Who would have ever thought at that time of the year we would have evacuated? So again, a disaster kit, not so much a hurricane kit. I jokingly say this: if you're from up north and you had your blizzard kit in your basement, I don't know what a basement it is, I've read about it, seen pictures, but you would have food, you'd have canned goods, you'd have important papers or documents. We're recommending now, with the era of technology, to take pictures of scan your will, your insurance papers, your contact list, prescription list. Put them on a thumb drive, throw that thumb drive in your pocket, safety deposit box in your kit, but in your kit, put your canned goods and your prescriptions. And speaking of prescriptions, we're recommending you take the prescription bottle with you. Again, I try to give real life experiences. Hurricane Michael, those people evacuated. When they came back, they had no home. They had no doctor's office and no pharmacy. I know when I go get my prescription filled, my goodness, my doctor's in town, my pharmacy's there. I can tell them there's a prescription. They need all that information. So if you do need to evacuate, we recommend taking the bottles with you. So that's good to know. Also, what we recommend too is just a little consideration is when you put that, oh, I don't know, can of baked beans, beef stew, chili, whatever canned goods you have in your kit, think about it at the end of hurricane season, the last of the year around November. What are a lot of groups doing? Food pantries. Those food pantries are at churches and civic clubs and the schools and all that. If you haven't eaten that can of chili, can of baked beans in 6 months, you know what? Maybe you could do without it. I call it re-gifting to those in need. Just something to think about, a way to give to the community. But if you really need it, go ahead and eat it and pass it on, because it probably wouldn't last a whole year anyway. What else do we have to prepare for? Well, you know, we live in beautiful Manatee County, the beautiful beaches. We live here in paradise. You may not have little ones at home anymore, but you might have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, nieces or nephews that come visit. Because as I tell people, once they live in Florida, they know you live in the sunshine, they'll come down and visit you. When do they come? Summertime. When does hurricane come? The summertime. So prepare for the wee little ones, as I call them. A lot of us grew up on coloring books and board games and things like that. We didn't have electronics. We had those things. Well, guess what? I hate to admit it, but my little granddaughter, she would be a terror if she didn't have her tablet. But if you lose power, you're not going to have those things. So prepare things for them, crafts and so forth, but also think about their little tummies, snack foods, healthy snacks and things like that for the wee little ones. What else do we want to prepare for? Many of us have, you know what? I call them our fur babies, our little dogs, our cats, our birds, and we have to tend to them too. We have to make sure they have water. We have to make sure they have medicines. If you're going to evacuate or go somewhere, have copies of their vaccination records. If you're going to go to a shelter and travel, have a crate for them. Not only just a crate, but a crate they can stand up in and turn around. Don't make them cooped up. But we love our fur babies. We need to take care of our fur babies. And so think about them too if you're going to evacuate or go somewhere else too. So here's one thing of the headlines we were talking about, knowing your home. Manatee County has been, I think, advanced for many, many years. And our building codes are very, very good. If your home was built after 2012, your home is constructed for 150 mile an hour winds. If it was 2002-12, 130 mile an hour winds, and 2002, 110 to 90 mile an hour. So what I'm saying here is really, if your home was built after 2002, your roof can stand 110 mile an hour winds. Now, it's not to say you might have an older home and you re-roofed it. And when I say re-roofed it, I'm not talking about putting new shingles on. I'm talking about you may have then had it tied down, strapped down, and so forth. Again, this is a guide, and I'll talk about here in just a few minutes how you can tell if you don't already know what year your home was built. And so then you can go back and look what's your strength or knowing your home. The other item is we evacuate for two reasons. One is storm surge. When we talk about storm surge, is that wall of water coming in off the Gulf of Mexico or coming in off the Gulf into Tampa Bay up the river, but that's that big wall of water of us on this coast that's off the Gulf, off the East Coast of Florida is off the Atlantic. And the other item is manufactured mobile homes, and the main reason there is because of the wind. Those do not fare good in high winds. Again, a few weeks ago when the tornado came through, I think it was 3 or 4 mobile homes had some structural damage. Again, thankful nobody was injured, but the wind can do that damage. So important thing is when we talk about preparing your home, what to do. Newer homes have hardened windows, but not necessarily hurricane windows. You can upgrade to hurricane windows, have shutters, put up plywood, but protecting your windows no matter where you live, because what I bring up is, again, I use Hurricane Michael as an example. I think all of you know where Mayaca City is, and probably you know where Arcadia is. Think about this. If Hurricane Michael would have came across Anna Maria Island, they had 100-mile-an-hour winds as far inland as Arcadia. I'll state that again. If that storm came in here, 100-mile-an-hour winds all the way into Arcadia. So we want you to secure your homes. Again, newer homes have a lot of them, contractors provide shutters or hurricane windows, but we also want to recommend is picking up your lawn furniture, your barbecue grills, ceramic pottery in the yard and things like that, because when the wind comes through, those lawn chairs, lawn furniture, grills could go through either your plate glass window or someone else's if it's sitting outside. Also on this slide talks about filling your gas tank up. 2 reasons. One is if you do evacuate and everybody from South Florida is headed north, you're going to be fighting for gas. And the other reason is if power is lost, a lot of service stations or gas stations do not have generators. So fill up your gas tank if you see a storm coming our way. Speaking of generators, this had brought up some new topics. Basically, when we talk about generators, the question I ask is, what are you wanting to power? And so with that is you can buy a generator for $200 or you can buy a generator for $20,000. And meaning that is, to give you an example, a $200 generator from Lowe's or Home Depot would power, maybe a lamp and maybe a refrigerator, whereas a $10,000 to $20,000 permanently mounted would run your house just like it is today, air conditioning, the oven, and everything else. So you need to make a decision of what is it that I really want to power? Do I need power? Do I don't need power? How much do I want to invest? The smaller ones take fuel, then you have to worry about having enough fuel. The more expensive ones are LP gas and natural. Of course, if you get a larger kind, you can get what's called a transfer switch. Basically, that is a switch built in where power went out, it would automatically go back and forth between your generator and your regular power. If you live in a subdivision that has an HOA, most of them have that you have to submit through your architect review committee, but it's a submission just like if you're going to paint your house or do something like that. What we ask to do is do not backfeed, so properly hook up any size generator, make sure it's done professionally, and most of all, ventilate. I say this because this has been done, that you do not want to put your generator or even barbecue grills in your garage and your lanai. Some people put it inside their house because that creates carbon monoxide and can be very devastating, and people do die from that. That's why we bring it up. So make sure you ventilate, whether it's for a generator, a barbecue grill, or whatever. Something to keep in mind that EMS and fire, with wind sustained, and I say sustained at 45 miles an hour, quit responding, law enforcement at 55 miles an hour. That's a rule of thumb. Manatee County is a big, big county, and it doesn't necessarily that if the winds are high on the island, they're going to be high on Lakewood Ranch or the other way around. But that's a guide. When the winds get really, really high, and during Hurricane Irma they were, it's a decision to the Emergency Operations Center and the staff and the leadership of where those winds are too high that they can actually blow the ambulances and fire trucks over. But again, that's a guide, and just want to let you know that. Knowing your level, brought this up front. Again, mymanatee.org, and it has more information, but if you went to mymanatee.org in the search bar, know your level. And as we move on about sandbags and shelters, just use those keywords. So first of all, knowing your level. If we went to that, we would see down here at the bottom of the screen, Enter your address. Here I entered the County Administration Building, 1112 Manatee Avenue West. Hit search, and then there's about 6 blocks on that page that comes up, and the first one here is evacuation C or D. Off the top of my head, many areas out east, Lakewood Ranch and East County, are in either an E or a not even applied area. But again, these calls are open to everyone. So again, up front, when I say know your level, you can go on the website. And again, this is good to tell your family and friends to go online to check their evacuation level. The other one is knowing the year your home was built. Remember, just a few slides back, I talked about 2000, 2002, 2012. Middle of the page here, that building was built in 1989. So just in case you didn't know what time, year your home was built, right online, you can go in and see that information. So the other is sandbags and school shelters. The first one, if you look at this map, they look like little sandbags. I joke and say pineapples, but the little black sandbags here are sandbag locations. They're black on this display because none of them are open. Now, this isn't all of them, because depending on where the storm's coming in at, the intensity of the storm, we may put up what we call pop-up sites too. But again, if you went to this website, went on, black shows you closed, red shows you open. Then we have the little red schoolhouses. Those are 25 of the schools. So let me say this, all shelters are schools, but not all schools are shelters. So all shelters are schools, but not all schools are shelters. The other thing is we do not open them all at once. 25 is a big number. We open them in phases, 3 to 4 at a time. Again, depending on, is the storm coming in from the Gulf? Is it coming from the east? What intensity it is? And we will alert both the news media, this website, our social media, and put the word out which ones open up in what order. So again, a good information. This map is in the hurricane guide. This map is online. So the information is out there for you to see. When we talk about evacuation, we talk about driving tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. Just as long as you're in, outside of the evacuation area. I joke to the people that live either in a mobile home, manufactured home, or maybe those that live along the Gulf or the river, find someone you know out in Lakewood Ranch, because normally they're high and dry and are in a newer home. Make a new friend and go out there. But you can stay at some hotels inland, or if you do decide to leave in plenty of time. One of my friends during Irma procrastinated, headed to Atlanta. Instead of an 8-hour trip, it took him 18 hours. So not only took him too long, but he then was competing with everybody from Miami up for gas stations, roadways, and restaurants. So again, leave early if you are going somewhere. When we talk about shelters, we want to make sure you know that they're a refuge of last resort. A shelter is a safe place. A shelter is somewhere that you can be fed and be safe. We said it's a lifeboat and not a cruise ship. Now I jokingly say it's more like a one-man kayak, but it is a safe location and you get fed. You have to bring, as in this picture, your own lawn chair, your own sleeping bag, your own supplies. So if you can go somewhere else, we ask you to do that. We have about, in full capacity, in even numbers, 35,000 shelter space. There's 411,000 people that live in Manatee County, but not all 411,000 have to evacuate. But as we saw in Hurricane Irma, and this is why we hope you're listening to our presentation, if you do not need to evacuate, don't. If you do need to evacuate, try to go somewhere else, because there's a lot of people that have nowhere else to go, and that's why we need shelters. But remember, it's a refuge of last resort. It is a safe place. If we have to, we will let as many people in as we have to. Nobody is going to become harmed, but just consider going somewhere else if you have to. Medical special needs, we ask that if you know someone that is oxygen dependent, electrical dependent, or Alzheimer dementia, please sign up now or have them sign up now. Again, mymanatee.org/needs, mymanatee.org special needs, because what it is this allows us to know who these people are, arrange for their transportation, make sure we have enough medical staff, nurses, and so forth, and supplies on hand. And what it is we have 2 schools currently, the only 2 schools in Manatee County that does have a generator, and make sure we have enough room. So if you have a family or friend that is oxygen dependent, electrical dependent, Alzheimer, or dementia, please have them sign up now. Doesn't mean they have to go, but at least we know how many to prepare for. And as the storm's coming, we have ways of notifying them and checking with them if they're going to be coming, if they're at home, if they're going somewhere else, and it helps us plan the better. I'm not going to say brand new because this came out last year. It's a new notification system, Alert Manatee and Manatee Ready. Alert Manatee and Manatee Ready. Alert Manatee replaces Code Red. And so it's ways of getting notifications directly from us. Many of us watch the news. Our news is usually the Tampa and St. Pete market. So what I say is the news could be reporting that it's raining cats and dogs in Wesley Chapel, and you're out on the golf course playing golf. Is that current information? Well, if you sign up now, mymanatee.org/alert manatee, you can get information directly from us. There's stages of alerts. So just in case you either didn't read everything properly or you're getting too many alerts of too many things, you can contact us. My information's at the end, and unsubscribe to certain levels of alerts, but it's all good information. So again, Alert Manatee. Manatee Ready is really text messaging of short information. As COVID started, the director would send out things of, this is where you can get tested at, wear your mask during a disaster, it might give you tips. This is text. So if you text a word Manatee Ready, all one word, to 888-777, that's Manatee Ready to 888-777. Again, a way of getting some very basic information straight to your cell phone. Good information, very short, very to the point, but effective ways of getting notifications from us. Like I wanted to mention CERT teams, community emergency response teams. We have right now 7 teams. We would like to have more form. We do put on classes, but needless to say, over the last year, we had no classes of anything going on. What we're working on now is actually training each of the teams to train their own people. We have the resources now to what we call train the trainer to get those teams out. Those are our eyes and ears in the disaster world. A lot of people are familiar with neighborhood watches, very similar to that, where neighborhood watches is law enforcement eyes and ears. CERT teams are ours. They learn what to do, in a lot of cases what not to do. But again, there are eyes and ears and help during emergencies. 7 teams currently, would love to grow. Again, my contact information is at the end of the presentation. We're always out on Facebook, Twitter, different ways of staying in contact with us. We always post out great information coming out of my office. Of course, during hurricane season, we push out little tidbits of how to prepare and so forth. But during various other things, we push out great information. We have a good information section that keeps the public informed. I know I've been going pretty quick, but like I said, everything I've been bringing up is contained somewhere else. But we just want to remind everybody that 911 is for emergencies, fires, crimes in progress, and accidents. A great thing that we put in place 3 years ago, I think it was, Director, I believe, something like that, was 311, where if you have a question here in Manatee County about anything, you dial 311, and then that call is directed to the right department if they cannot answer your question. So routine questions about maybe what shelters are open, or I have a utility problem, or how do you get somewhere, or where there's sandbags. Please use 311 or the county's regular information line. Use 911 for emergency purposes. Use them for emergency purposes. That is that. My information is here. Here's my name, my email, my phone number. So if you have a group that is interested in CERT, whether it is what teams we already have in place or how to get involved in CERT, you can either give me a call. Here it's 941-749-3507, or give me shoot me an email. If you want to, what I recommend is, if you're interested, take your phone out, take a snapshot of this page here. So that way you have my contact information. If I can't help you, one of my staff will. So that concludes. Like I said, I went pretty quick through here, but as I said, my information that I provide is mostly in the Hurricane Guide and online. So I'm going to turn it over to the director and the commissioner for any ending comments, and then we'll entertain questions.
Commissioner Baugh, you have anything to say, or before we take any questions?
The only thing that I would ask Steve, when you talk about CERT, a lot of people really are not knowledgeable about CERT and how important it is and how it's been around in this county and Manatee County from, for quite a while. The 7 teams that you say that we have, are they located like throughout the county or in one general area? Because I'm sure that we're going to need to start putting some new teams together and training, like you said.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of them are out east, but we do have some others. Lakewood Ranch is a very large program. We have them in, hope I don't leave anybody out, but Del Webb, Lakewood Ranch, Greenfield Plantation, University Park. Trailer Estates is a huge one. Matter of fact, they just put on a class that was part of the Train the Trainer program. Waterleaf, I'm sure I'm leaving one out, but yes, ma'am, we really want to get more out there, and that's what we're trying to do. As we get the teams going, it's kind of using a resource that if we can train them to train their own, we can get more of those teams out there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in the community are not familiar really with CERT, and I know it was pretty active before COVID, so I was hoping that it was still pretty good. So I'm really glad to hear about Watercrest and Trailer Estates. And of course, I knew Lakewood Ranch had several. So that's really good to hear. And I hope now that we're kind of getting past COVID, that more and more people will get involved and we'll have even more teams. Because if we really have a category 5 or 4 that comes through, it's going to really come in handy. Good information.
Yes, ma'am. And for those that are listening, it's a 24-hour course. So it's not a long time. And as I stated, it's more of what to do and sometimes what not to do, or who to contact. And those are really, really good about that. And so we're going to try to get more courses as we came. And even through COVID, we did have some Zoom calls to keep the team still connected. And so we're going to continue on with that. So anything else, ma'am or director?
Yeah, just some, I'm sorry, Commissioner, did you have any more? Okay. Just some quick things to wrap up before we take some questions. This year, we partnered with Lost Pets, a foundation that is donating money to vaccinate pets. So if you go to mymanatee.org/animal services, we're going to be doing about 5 pop-up vaccine sites for animals. We had our first one at GT Bray this weekend that went very well, and it's for rabies, distemper, and microchip. All of those are good things to have, especially if you're in an area that you're going to have to go to a shelter. We look for those dogs and animals to be vaccinated as well from rabies, so that they're not a harm to anybody else when going into the shelter. So as those get scheduled, those will be at mymanatee.org/animal services, and anybody can take advantage of that. Everything is free for the animals that come to there. It's a checkup. rabies, distemper, and microchipping if your dog hasn't been microchipped. So with that, we can open it up to any questions if there is any. If you have any questions, just raise your hand or you can unmute yourself. Oh, Chris Gilbert. Go ahead, sir. You have to unmute.
Oh, okay. I thought I would type it. Can you hear me, Jacob?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
One more time. Okay. We know that there is likely to be an unpublished and informal VIP list for accessing all of the services in District 5. What fail-safes do you have in place to ensure that folks like in my zip code of 34208 don't get ignored when we're writing for help in emergencies? I know that Vanessa doesn't return any emails unless they're from a donor or someone who specifically and reliably supports her. So how do people know that they're going to get equal treatment when they write in for help?
Okay, that's not an appropriate question. Does anybody else have any questions?
So I actually have a few questions. I'm working on an article right now about hurricane preparedness, but I don't want to kind of monopolize the conversation here. I was wondering if maybe I could, speak with Steve or with you, Jake, or both of you at some point in the next couple of days here.
Sure, Brendan. You have both of our contacts, so just reach out to us, and we'll be glad to help you with whatever questions you might have.
Great, thank you.
Does anybody else have their hand raised? Any more questions for us before we go?
I don't know how to raise my hand,
That's
but
okay.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Why is it important to know? I think I have the response. I just want it to be clear. Why is it important to know your house year built and the letter? I don't remember what's called.
Question.
Steve, you want to take that?
Yes, sir. So the year house built was knowing the construction of your home. So if you live in a newer home, let's say even at 120 mile an hour wind, and a tropical storm's coming through at 70 miles an hour, you would know that the strength of your home would withstand. Even a category 1 at 77 miles an hour wind, that allows you know the strength of your home, that it would stand up to those winds. So if you lived in an older home, like maybe 1980 or 1990, and the winds were going to be 120 mile an hour, then your home would not be withstanding those winds. As far as the evacuation level, those A, B, C, D, those have to do with levels of storm surge. So again, if we're expecting, I'll go back during Hurricane Irma, what we originally thought, or not thought, what was originally predicted was we might have gotten up to a 10 to 15 foot surge of water, which would have meant that water in this case would have came all the way into 71st Street in Bradenton. So if we went back into, I'm going to see if I can do that, go back into this map. Whoop, there we are. See the different colors of colors in the map? That's are the different evacuations level. So the different colors, and there's a code here on the right-hand side, the more water coming in, the more evacuation level. So again, if you live out east, you're pretty safe. But if you live towards in town, and again, when I say you, it could be your families or friends. So if you live within the city of Bradenton towards the island, you do need to worry about that surge of water, even up in Terracea, up in Palmetto, or along the river. Did that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, it did. Thank you. I think I'm
ma'am.
on a safer place. I'm by 75.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
75. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any
Yeah.
other questions?
It's always good to remember we don't evacuate for wind. We evacuate for flooding. So when we do call for evacuations, it's because of
Okay.
flooding in certain areas.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions before we go? I don't see anybody with their hand up.
Yes, ma'am. The commissioner did.
Oh, yep. Go ahead, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that, as usual, the information that's been provided here tonight is very, very helpful to the community. I really appreciate two of you taking the time out of your schedule to do it. I think, if anything, we should probably do this more often and give people more notice of how to get on, and really make it could be so good for most of the community. So I look forward to having more of these in the future. I think it's probably going to be a very active year, but I did want to tell both of you, thank you for your time tonight and all the information. It's very good. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. No other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much that you came out tonight. You can check the website for other presentations. This one will be, posted on the website, the link to it. So if you want to share it with family or friends, and like I said, and the director said, my contact and his information is included. Submit questions or call us or email us anytime. That's what we're here for, to help you and to make you feel and to make sure you're secure and safe. So with that said, if nothing else, everyone have a safe night and take care.
Thank you. Good
Thank you,
night.
Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.